So I will request Dr.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yasir Ashraf, coordinate the program. Let Dr. Ashraf,
Yes, sir.
its mic is to you now. Please start.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Yasir Ashraf. I am presently working in VT Institute of Arts and Science College, Erode, Tamil Nadu, and we have UG only. There is no PG, and I have got the PhD guideship. Maybe we will start the research department soon. So Professor Mohammad sir has given me the opportunity to coordinate this session. So I wholeheartedly am grateful to sir to give me this opportunity. So good afternoon, respected speaker of the day, Professor Rajashekar, Chairperson Department of Sociology at Bangalore University. Respected convener of RC05, Professor P.H. Mohammad sir, esteemed members of the Indian Sociological Society, scholars, students, and distinguished participants. It's indeed my privilege and honor to welcome you all to this special lecture organized by the Research Committee 05 Sociology of Education under the auspices of Indian Sociological Society. Today's lecture is entitled Education is Empowerment, India's Journey from Literacy to Innovation. This theme is not only timely but also crucial as it bridges the foundational purpose of education with the dynamic demands of the knowledge-driven society. In recent decades, India has made remarkable strides in increasing literacy rates, promoting access to education, introducing innovation in learning practices. But the journey from literacy to innovation is not merely a statistical or policy shift, it's a transformational journey of empowerment. To guide us through this journey, we are honored to have with us Professor Rajashekar, a distinguished academician and the chairperson of Department of Sociology at Bangalore University, Bengaluru. His work in the field of education, social development, and policy analysis continues to inspire scholars and educators across the country. Now, I would like to request Professor Gundamida sir to introduce the guest. Over to you, sir.
So, thank you, Ashraf. And at the outset, I'm extremely thankful to Professor Mohammad sir for this great opportunity to introduce Professor Rajesh. Professor Rajesh is one of the distinguished sociologists of our country. He has completed his MA from Bangalore University, and he is one of the first scholars to clear JRF way back to 1996. And after clearing JRF, which was one of the prestigious fellowship at that time, he has registered for his PhD program at Hyderabad Central University, and because of his outstanding performance, he got job at a very early age as an assistant professor at Bangalore University. I think way back to 99 2000. So he has put up more than almost 25 years of service, and is for the last 25 years of his academic engagement, he has offered number of courses in the Department of Sociology at Bangalore University, starting from the courses related to theory to methodology, Indian society. And he is one of the great advocate of, great advocate of theory and empirical reality. So he was known for working towards the policy implementation and policy understanding and policy implementation. So therefore, one can find Professor Rajesh as a great scholar who has in-depth understanding with reference to sociological theory. And Rajesh is also a very good policy scholar with reference to understanding what are the strengths and weaknesses of the policies and how effectively the policies has to be implemented in order to transform India as a developed nation. Apart from his contributions within the department, he is also known for, let's say, taking special care towards the students from the first generation background. So unlike, let's say, pre 2000, where students from the middle class, they used to join in sociology departments in almost all the universities. But in the post-liberalization, globalization era, only the students from working class background are going to the state universities and also to certain central university. So, but he has taken those kind of transition as a challenge, as he's always trying his best to empower the academic skills as well as the research skills of the students from the first generation background in the Department of Sociology at the Bangalore University. So, apart from his great contributions towards the, let's say, academic enrichment and student empowerment, is also systematically engaged in number of policy related projects implemented by the government of India, government of Karnataka. And as a faculty colleague who has been known to him for the last 20 years, both my during my student days as well as a faculty member, I once in a while I get a chance to meet Professor Rajesh. What I noticed is that he wanted to use sociology for the transformation of Indian society. So he has also published very good articles. So therefore, I wish to highlight that at a very young age, he is known for achieving some of the best things in the best things in the context of Karnataka as well as at the all India level. It's always a pleasure to meet Professor Rajesh and a pleasure to introduce Professor Rajesh to our group, Sociology of Education group. He is so active in our Sociology of Education group for the last 5 years. We are really thankful to Professor Rajesh for taking membership in our group and contributing towards the development of our group. And also, once again, I'm extremely thankful to Professor Mohammad sir for taking lot of pain in by conducting series of lectures with some of the eminent scholars in the fields of sociology and anthropology. For the last 2 years, sir has been so kind to activate our sociology of education RC, and we need to all of us we need to appreciate the contributions of Professor Mohammad for taking this great responsibility towards the academic enrichment of sociology of education. So I'm extremely thankful to you, sir, for this opportunity, and also I'm extremely thankful to Professor Rajesh sir for accepting the invitation of RC5. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Gundamida, sir. Sir has beautifully and briefly introduced today's guest. Without further delay, I now invite Professor Rajashekar, sir, to kindly deliver his lecture on Education as Empowerment, India's Journey from Literacy to Innovation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, one and all, and good afternoon. Thank you, Professor Mohammad, for having invited me to this lecture series, and also Professor Nagaraju for introducing me, and also Professor Yasir Ashraf for taking the initiative in organizing this lecture series. Good afternoon, everybody. As the title goes, Education as Empowerment, India's Journey from Illiteracy to Innovation. When Professor Mohammad asked me to think on a topic which could be much more contemporary and also a deviation from the convenient or probably conventionally being debated. So as the title goes, Education as Empowerment, India's Journey from Illiteracy to Innovation, I wanted to look into how the narratives and the debates are going on in the field of education. When we basically try to understand education, the education as a process, as an institution, is not new, or it's not the British creation or a colonial creation. Education has been there since the livelihood of people. So do we need to differentiate between the concept of literacy and education? This is how the whole argument in my mind started. It does not confine only to the 3 R's of education, that is reading, writing, arithmetic, and probably the 4th R, that is computer, that is being debated. But if you are looking from the perspective of education, education starts the day the baby is born, or even before the baby is born, the baby is conceived in the mother womb. So there are lots of historical explanations and various other things. But even then, mother is known as the first teacher, and so family is known as the first school. So in that process, what kind of debate are we building in the name of education, where the whole sociological arguments are talking in terms of who is getting and who is not getting, and why it is being denied, and what kind of education is being allowed. These debates, it started bothering me. So in that perspective, obviously, literacy is probably might have started from a different generation or a different perspective altogether. But education as such, every profession, every occupation, every livelihood, even a farmer has been imparting this particular knowledge, the life skills and the occupation related components, and the language that every society speaks. So this has been a part of education. But the whole debate starts with some sort of the colonial entry and the Machiavelli's turning point. From there onwards, the whole system changed and everything has changed. This is some sort of a fallacy that has been created, and we have been debating and documenting only on that argument rather than looking into other dimensions. So I wanted to see in terms of how this family-based education has transformed, or it has come to almost a standstill in the form of introduction of the formal education system that has been given to us now. So, which was supposed to be an all-rounder educational institution has now taken a sideline, and it has become almost like it has gone out of the whole purview. So the fundamental role of the family, of socialization, various other things, has now become informal, and again it has taken a very, very different shape altogether. But then when we try to look in terms of ancient Indian understanding of pre-colonial or even pre-Mughal and also ancient period kind of a thing, there has been some sort of a narrative that there was only Gurukula system, and again some people in the Gurukula system were given education, and again nobody else had the education. So I try to see that there is some sort of a problem in terms of singular narrative of Gurukula education. Could it be possible that every society only had one form of education system? Is it possible at any point of time? Or is it possible that different occupations, be it lohar or chamar or agriculturist or maybe different weaver, you name the occupation, they did not probably require some sort of a literacy of reading, writing and arithmetic, but they were given education from their own family and again traditional mechanisms through how to professionalize, how to expertise themselves, and how to make a perfect product that is being served to the society. So every different strata of the society, if we call it a strata, or every section of the society, if it is not a strata, if everybody was equal, as Marx tries to see in terms of his own narrative while explaining the primitive communism, where in Asiatic mode of production, whatever it might be, whether he had visited India or not, whether it was based on some sort of literature that he had read. So there was some sort of a system that was prevalent everywhere. So that gives to understand Gurukula was not the only system that was prevailing. So the multiple systems of knowledge transmission beyond Gurukula paradigm needs to be questioned, because not many have even tried to look into that these kind of alternative knowledge transmission mechanisms were prevalent in that period. Probably we have been given to understand by the people who have only given to know or probably documented that Gurukula was the only form of education system, hence it was denied to others. Probably Gurukula was confined only to kings, probably the political orders, or probably some people who knew about some of these things and again they wanted to transfer. So Gurukula system probably had a different mechanism altogether, catering to a different set of people. So Gurukula alone could not have been the possible system that would have made provisions for the knowledge being transmitted from generation to generation. The next argument I would like to bring in here is Gurukula alone could not have probably provided the sustaining knowledge system. The knowledge could not have been only from a Gurukula. A guru cannot be residing in a particular home and again tell all his students how to manufacture or modify the leathers or metals and various other things. A theoretical dimension could have been done by some people, but not by every guru. So there are Sakala Vidyagala Parangata. There is some sort of an argument saying that the king has to have mastery over 64 Vidyas and again several Kales kind of a thing. So this argument needs to be questioned in terms of, if that was the case, was it possible by one single guru to provide all the knowledges to every student? It was not probably possible, because music was absent in this Gurukula system, or probably metallurgy was absent. Warriorship probably could have been given by the king related and Kshatriyas kind of a thing, but many other people were in need of various other things. But if that is the case, whatever is documented is available to us in the form of knowledge, and if it is available only in one particular language, that is Sanskrit, then there are other languages which we have not even explored. So my argument comes into the picture in terms of, was it only Gurukula system or was it only Sanskrit? There are other languages which also provided knowledges and got transmitted in different parts of this country, in different regions, in different languages. So in that context, I also bring in another argument saying that not everything is documented, not everything is textual based, not everything is in a printed form or in the written form. There are many practices and knowledges which are being transmitted from generation to generation, or even if there were some evidences that could have been destroyed, but that still sustains in various other forms. The very simple example I would like to take in terms of like the oil that we were consuming earlier were from this particular community which was extracting the oil, which were either known as Chettiars or Ganigas, or in different names in different locations. Now the same after the intervention of the commercial entity of purified oil, the health got deteriorated. Now people have started getting back to the cold pressed oil, which is being extracted from the traditional method of pressing those seeds and various other things. So if only, I am only trying to say, if only we try to revive all these kind of traditional occupations, there will be much more occupational employment and again entrepreneurial opportunities, which has been either wiped out because of the modern education in the name of English education, or in the name of modern education, or the education that is syllabus oriented kind of education. If only we try to go beyond that, we have ample opportunity and traditionally heavily rooted knowledge system which cuts across all sorts of knowledges across the globe. My last question in this particular concept of the Gurukula is, whose history is it being preserved? Is it the knowledge of all these kind of generations is it preserved, or the selected knowledge was preserved? Hence, the Gurukula is targeted, and also probably Gurukula needs to be questioned in that sense. If Gurukula was not catering to every section, then Gurukula was not the only system. If all other alternatives were there, then where has that particular alternative education system have gone? So there is some sort of a political patronage to probably safeguard or to protect or to propagate some selected institutions and probably selected groups of the people. That could have happened because of various other political and again contextual reasons and historical facts and various other things could be. But this is one of the argument which I am still debating and again trying to build a larger argument in terms of Gurukula is not the only system. There could have been better alternative systems which has probably catered to every occupation, every community and every living being as a human. Probably it could have been there, and getting to that little later in a different argument altogether. So unveiling those kind of things, there is some sort of a problem in the very narrative of Gurukula system. It's both by the Gurukula people who have built this narrative and also those who are criticizing the very narrative of Gurukula as the only system of knowledge that could have been there. So, but the whole argument I am trying to bring in here is that the critique and the construction of exclusionary character, as Bourdieu puts in terms of this social reproduction of some of these kind of hierarchies or knowledges and various other things, it's not just the cultural capital. The cultural capital probably has been defined only to a particular knowledge. Every knowledge is equally important. Ultimately, what is important for everybody is the livelihood. When the livelihood becomes important, obviously, how do you live and how do you make your life through any profession or any production of any product that is available in the surroundings, that becomes important. It's not necessarily a particular language or a particular knowledge or a particular specific occupation or profession. So this being the case, sociological discourse has built a fallacy or probably to negate everything and only to build some sort of saying that everything is excluded. In fact, exclusion has become some sort of an argument. In fact, there has been an academic exclusion of these kind of knowledges. I would rather put it like that. The attempts have not been made. The attempts are already going in one direction of building the arguments of exclusion only. I would rather put it in terms of there are many, 99% of our practices from different professions, different communities, different regions have not been explored at all. If only we try to explore all these things, we will have plethora of opportunities and knowledges and theories, and again, the depth of every profession that's available. Probably we can add those things, and again, we can just probably give a new direction or probably a framework to that, and that can definitely add to those kind of things. This has been some sort of an argument that the discourse has been that some people in the top, I'm just bringing this particular tree concept is basically some people in the top have benefited, and because of cultural capital, people would go. And again, many of the people who did not have the cultural capital, linguistically and structural inequality people have been excluded, kind of an argument that's coming in. But the knowledge every section has is more than the selected, the upper tree portion has. This is heavily loaded and again, deep-rooted knowledge system that is there existing in every society. That has not been explored because it is not available. Unfortunately, it's not available in English. It's not available in Sanskrit. It's available in regional languages, or probably it's not available in languages at all. It's probably the practices. It's probably in terms of symbolic formations, or it has been forgotten for various other things. If only if we try to unearth all these things, there will be a much more developed, established pattern that could emerge and again provide an answer to this. Now, the whole argument has been built in such a way that this structurally has provided an inequality and linguistic exclusion has taken place, and there is some sort of alienation both by self and also by the system. And because of some people who have the cultural capital and those who do not have the cultural capital, has led to this kind of a discourse that everything is bursted out, that Indian education is completely full of exclusion and social reproduction of the hierarchies. I would rather put it in terms of the way we have constructed our arguments has made it to be like that. If only we start enriching these kind of other knowledges, leaving aside the primordial importance given to a particular group or particular language or a particular text, if only get diversified, the knowledge needs to be decentralized and diversified. I'm taking the political language here. If only we decentralize our understanding and arguments, we will have plethora of arguments and again knowledges which can cut across all these things. If somebody has documented in Sanskrit, probably someone has observed it and again documented it. It could not have been given to everybody as the practitioner could have done it. Because in theory, what we teach and in practice, what we do are totally different things. And theory enables, but not completely provides a different outlook altogether. So in this process, I just try to see in terms of how this, one way, the deep-rooted biases in terms of curriculum hierarchies, institutional failures for not catering to all these things has probably brought down to understand and argue only in one direction of mechanisms. So this needs to be understood from the perspective of how we have to relook at all these things, probably give a different dimensions to sociological understanding, and again, a different mechanism of non-linear, layered, and again, bottom-up approach has already come in, subaltern approach has already come in, but again, trying to go it from a different altogether. I'll just take one argument. This is probably my thought, which I may be wrong also. I would request everybody to comment on it. Institutionally, IITs were built to cater the technological dimensions. When the social sciences were also provided placement there, the social sciences did not align with the technological innovations and their impact, or the need-based directions were not given to the IIT faculty. On the contrary, the kind of argument is being built is such that the social sciences are doing a totally different kind of research altogether, unconnected with the technological innovations and again transformations. This has probably given a different way of a gap that has emerged. If only these IIT faculty in social sciences have aligned with these kind of things, they could have probably given directions, what kind of research that you technology people should do. That has not happened, unfortunately. Unfortunately, some of us have been debating only on these kind of aspects, which has been not taken seriously. So when we try to see this exclusionary education system and critiquing and again only exposing, and we need to reframe this, we need to bring in, I want to transformative education system. So this probably would require a different dimension altogether. Is it that the first time that we are looking into and again nothing has been done? No. Efforts have been made right from the inception of Constitution, the way it was formulated, the Article 21A, which has made education as a fundamental right, has made tremendously a different movement altogether, which again I'm still trying to say that it has moved from literacy machine and not education based machine, which can provide livelihood. The education that was done earlier was livelihood based education and not literacy based education. Now what we are trying to talk in terms of right to education is also literacy based education, and that's how we have more literates but not employable. That's how Narayan Murthy and also many other people are talking about. So occupations defined and again required by the corporate world is not what the curriculum is linking. So as a result, there is some sort of a gap that is there between these two. Nevertheless, constitutional provisions have been made, and again general upliftment with symbolic empowerment and again various other mechanisms have already clearly created various other dimensions. So there are lots of attempts and there have been lots of movements in this direction to bring in institutionally and also intervene from multiple angles to bring in this kind of change. So there has been a big gap between the two, the aspirations and the realities, and this could also be structurally deformative and also the requirement kind of a reformment. If I were to look into these differences of the gap, how it emerged, the emergence basically comes in terms of the narrative that the Britishers probably built in, who wanted the best of the minds to be educated in English to serve their system, as everybody has already explained, but they did not nourish the local occupation-based and professional-based, livelihood-based activities. So they indirectly killed most of our practices of livelihood, which were occupation-based, community-based, Jat-based. So all these kind of things were destroyed and deconstructed to build their empire in their manner. So as a result, now we are all moving in direction of looking how education needs to be understood, how literacy needs to be understood. So our all enumeration of census and education, GER and various other things are now within the framework of education that is being provided. Now this needs to be questioned, because if you don't understand the mechanism of this, we will again continue to fail. And again, the institutions that now the post-corona we have experienced now, the number of students who are getting admitted to most of the courses have come down drastically. Students who are admitted, coming and attending the classes in the institutions have come down drastically. Very interestingly, at the time of corona, I asked many of the students this question: why is that you're not seeking admission and why are you not attending the classes? Many parents, in fact, told us, yes, definitely, you can ask questions during the lecture. I would not, definitely at the end of the lecture. That this education did not provide employment, did not provide livelihood, did not provide the support that they were expecting. So there was a transition, especially the corona was a turning point for people, the belief that they had in education and again the belief that they don't have now. So now everybody is moving towards a different dimension altogether. So did it mean that this exclusion education did not provide opportunity for many people? No. The modern education or the English education or the education that we are not talking about has already provided many first generation learners where Professor Nagaraj has also conducted a survey and also submitted a report. So first generation learners in the literacy point of view definitely has increased in the education point of view. But if people were not educated in their own profession needs to be questioned, because they were all educated in their own family, in their own professions and their own activities. But if only a support system was provided to that profession, probably it would have enhanced our mechanism and again economy in a different way. Women professionals have entered, and women professionals did not enter and they were not allowed to enter was not only the Indian scenario but was a global scenario. But now it provides a democratic response to all these things where women also are now into activities. And there are lots of Dalits, tribal, civil servants, intellectuals and various other things. These are only some markings which has put it in a diagram, but there could be much more who are marginalized in various other forms. So my point is only to say that it is not the only way of looking at education and the syllabus confined mechanisms, but we can go beyond that. So historically, this whole argument that the caste-based exclusion is one form of argument, but there are other ways of looking in terms of how exclusion have been a continuous process and program. There are lots of articles which also take prior to 18th century. There were many schools in every village, not just one school in a village, there are many schools in every village. That I am not bringing those evidences here, but it can be brought out later. But there were lots of teachers who did not confine or were part of this Gurukula system. There were different mechanisms which existed. So even in Dalits and Adivasis, children were being taught for different mechanisms of their own livelihood kind of a thing. But if only that knowledge is enriched and again encashed, we can do much more wonderful things. So my argument is, can we relook at this historical stratification? The stratification, if we try to see, the stratification exists on social lines, the stratification exists on political lines, the stratification exists on economic lines. So does it mean to say that only the upper strata had the access and benefit of all these things, economic, social and political, or even cultural kind of a thing? There could have been different mechanisms which cater to various other forms of education system. My point is, I'm not denying this argument, but my point is there are many things which are missed out. If only we try to see the knowledges that existed in different forms has not been documented, and if only we try to document it, it probably can be brought into a different way of explanation altogether. So this production of understanding and reproduction of hierarchies, and again the stratification, the language that we are all speaking in, could be probably the tip of the iceberg. As it can be seen, it's only the tip of the iceberg. There are many things underneath, probably much more problematic as a problem, or probably there could be some more opportunities to unearth and again also explore in a much more better way. There are many information which has not been explored from the gendered perspective at all, because whatever the innovation that's happening, it's happening from the male perspective. The innovations, very little has been seen from the gendered perspective in terms of how women want that kind of innovation to need to be done, how children want it to be done in different way. So let's try to see all these things from a different dimensions and argument altogether, as how these things can be probably unearthed in a different way. So there are many people and many efforts being carried out. Nevertheless, Right to Education Act or Sarva Shikshana Abhiyan and various resolution policies and providing various other affirmative actions, and we can come out with more number of narratives to explain that attempts have been made to demarginalize, if in case we try to say that there has been a process of marginalization of in the field of education, there has been a demarginalization process of enabling people to be a part of the mainstream kind of a thing. But then if that effort has not been able to fulfill in spite of 75 years of effort, then that needs to be questioned in terms of what are the other strings that are pulling it down. It could not be only one or two strings, there could be multiple strings which are pulling them down. So as the physical sciences look at the gravitation, I would like to pull as social gravitations are more here in terms of not allowing, or probably they will not be able to come up in the ladder and various other things. So if only we try to either cut the strings or probably delink those strings either psychologically, sociologically, or from various other perspectives, this can probably enable people to come up in a higher level in a much more better way. So I'm only trying to say in terms of the mechanisms needs to be seen from a different angle altogether. So I'm only trying to say that not the effort has been so far not being very fruitful, but the magnitude in terms of the way we were expected to, that has not happened. Now the institutions have taken a different shape altogether. It's been commercialized. Now private players have come into the government setup. So government setup is a big challenge, which was now catering to the downtrodden or probably destitutes or probably weaker sections, the marginalized. Now it has a different challenge altogether. Now how to address these challenges in a market scenario where some hand or invisible hand, as Adam Smith puts it, some invisible hand is playing its own again hand. To recontrol these things, we need to relook at these things. So that needs to be looked at from a very, very larger perspective altogether. This is again the section that is mass transformation through education. These were the basic arguments I have brought down till now. And some of the statistics I'm only trying to bring in here is to give that India did not stay there where it was in the pre-colonial period or in the colonial period or in the independent period. After independence also, we have done tremendous progress in terms of making more number of people literate, giving education in the formal setup. The statistics always reveals that we are now in a much more comfortable position in terms of literacy. Whether it is adult education literacy or providing education to the people who could not have done it, or probably distance mode or institutions, the number has increased, access has been provided, various other things. But then the question is now whether this education has enabled them to have a livelihood is the question. Everything is being thrusted in the name of syllabus till graduation, that every student has to learn everything. In that process, one of the arguments that people are talking in terms of that crucial 15 years from the age of 5 onwards, where the first standard comes in, the crucial 15 years of their education is gone in a different direction where they probably were not even good at, probably they were not even expecting, or probably their dream has not seen the match of what the education has been. So a probably new dimension can only see how different perspectives can bring in the dream, the hope, the taste, the interest can also meet those kind of things. Nevertheless, even then in that particular scenario, there are many people who are illiterate in the formal sense have been brought under the umbrella of literacy. Many institutions and many organizations and very communities which were excluded for various historical reasons, sociological reasons, economic reasons, political reasons have also been brought into the gamut of education. But now the same people are also asking, has this education provided me any livelihood? Awareness has come definitely. I can read, write, and do basic arithmetics. I can also do some sort of activities. But has it translated in the form of some sort of a livelihood, or maybe a dream fulfilling, or probably some sort of a mechanism that provides a different path altogether for their dreams or aspirations or various other things. So in that direction, I only wanted to see how can we see a different direction or dimension altogether, not to look into some sort of criticisms or the gaps in this. With the gaps, probably we can look for alternatives, or probably we can look for various other mechanisms. So there is some sort of statistics which are available in the public domain, which gives us some sort of information how there has been a transformation. Though still a lot of gaps are there, as the graph itself indicates, there are lots of still gaps are there, and then gap needs to be addressed. But that gap also can be addressed from a different dimension altogether is only my point. Various other schemes like midday meal schemes or adult literacy or various other mechanisms, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or National Education Policy across various other decades, and the latest one is 2020. So everything has been providing a different dimension altogether. The efforts are already going on and attempts are being made. But to give that kind of an support system for the aspiration, did we move ahead? My argument is only from sociological perspective, except being critical and criticality as the argument that we have brought in. Have we ever tried to give some sort of suggestions to the government that this is how it should be done? Instead of this could have been the alternative, or XYZ could have been the better alternatives. We expected the others to do that, and we were only trained to be critical about things and criticize things. I don't think so. In fact, we should be the innovators of education and also provide alternatives, which could be microscopic experiences or could be macroscopic experiences. By and large, the macroscopic theories and understandings have failed in the West also, even in India also. So the customary, customized, regional, microscopic explanations can provide a better explanation and alternative to all these kind of dimensions. So I wanted to see in terms of how this mode of education was transformed. From a familiar learning to professional learning. There was some sort of a family-based or caste-based, occupation-based apprenticeship, or probably activities of learning and again continuation of their professions were going on. It could be artisans, or it could be agriculturists, or it could be different traders. So definitely it cannot only confine to Varnashrama system, because if you try to see the Varnashrama system, it's a triangle based structure where the top gets squeezed and the bottom is more expansive. And that one particular mechanism could not have addressed the whole larger system and yet enjoy everything at larger system. So I think that theory needs to be questioned in terms of how that particular top squeezed and again bottom expansive mechanism has survived. It could not have survived. There could have been alternatives to all those things. So institutional learning has also expanded, and also now we have moved from family-based learning to professional-based learning. Now all these kind of things also university and technology-based or technical institutions like IITs and IIMs have already brought in these dimensions. So here we need to understand that knowledge, which were traditional in nature, has become a knowledge economy. So agrarian based and labor intensive technology is also coming back after the demerits of many of these kind of education systems or professions that have performed and again failed. It could be biotechnology, agriculture, and revolutions in various other forms. So some of the old traditional organic farming and various other things are coming back because it's not just a cycle. There are lots of demerits in those kind of systems which did not fulfill or provide answers to everything. So in that process, there is some sort of a need that we need to understand that education should be, as I already mentioned, for survival and education for aspiration and again excellence, which the earlier system of occupation-based education provided, I believe. I don't know, or probably there is no system, or probably there is no evidence to say that there are experts in every profession and every region who are not even documented. The way urbanization was there, it's not even documented who did the urbanization in the Harappa Mohenjo-daro period, or it's not even documented in terms of, if we go to Tamil Nadu, the kind of temples could not have been built by selected number of people or any particular community. Temples had to be built by the professional people who had the training in that, and they were definitely not Brahmins, and they were definitely not Kshatriyas, and they were definitely not Vaishyas. So in that process, the name and the technology and the architecture and the expertise has not been documented the way it should have been documented. So I'm only taking this as examples. It can go to various other professions, it could be oceanography, or in terms of shipping, shipyard building, construction of forts and various other things. Where is it documented who built it, the different forts? Thousands of kilometers of forts are built across various, all the region in India. Is it documented anywhere who built that particular fort? The king who was there in that particular period, name is documented, and not the people who built the fort, or the people who built the dams, or who made mega structures of that particular period is not documented. So I only try to say in terms of people have done lots of experts and again some sort of experiments in their own livelihood, which has not been documented. If only we try to look into these dimensions, probably we'll get many more answers and again many more innovations in that direction. So I move on to various other ways of understanding how people, because of the modern education, there has been a greater mobility, which was denied, definitely, which could be in the name of caste or class or gender, and that particular positions and dispositions have been given a different equalizer. Definitely in the perspective of first generation learners, many of us are the beneficiaries of this first generation, and we are also the beneficiary of this particular understanding of this notion of employment, notion of opportunity of sustainability, and also giving some sort of a support system to our families for various generations. Did it stop only there, or should we move one step ahead of exploring many more vistas? So some of these statistics only talk in terms of how things have changed and so provided dimensions. First generation learners and community recruitment have happened since ages in different forms by different community leaders and different people in position and people in matters of ability to convince and also evince some sort of their interest upon the policymakers. The role of affirmative action, the reservation, NGO interventions have also definitely made all these kind of things. My argument is these interventions have happened basically because of the criticality that they made. But the criticality happened only one direction. Probably if we had gone deeper into our history and various other things, we could have had better alternatives. That is one of the arguments that I'm trying to build in. By again questioning the very understanding of that everything was not bad, everything was not rosy, everything is not today also rosy. So there could be different dimensions of all those things. So every effort is being made by different people to understand and again go into various other aspects. There are several leaders who have put in lots of efforts to bring in some sort of changes. We can name many people, and again, it could be Tagore, Ambedkar, Mahatma Gandhi, Savitribai Phule, many other people who have brought in some sort of changes in various other forms. Their efforts have been great institutionally, individually, and also has built some sort of a movement as such. And again, various other dimensions have already come in. And arguments have also been built, documents have already been provided, and various other kind of arguments have also supported these kind of narratives and various other things. Now, my argument now would come in, should we confine only to these kind of livelihood-based education system, or the education only to impart some sort of knowledge that is required for as awareness kind of a thing, or should we now move towards some sort of innovation, experimentation, and also to provide some sort of entrepreneurship? So entrepreneurship by education can only establish some educational institutions, but education in different fields can bring in some sort of entrepreneurship. So this argument is missing in our curriculum, that the education that we impart or that we learn does not enable us to become entrepreneurial. We expect that people who go to perform or probably graduate in Indian Institute of Management or various other management schools are only capable of doing entrepreneurial kind of a thing. Now that we need to delineate and try to say that every individual, whatever may be the learning that could be in every knowledge realm or maybe sphere, they should be made to see that they don't get employed, but they start get employing people by establishing some entrepreneurial institutions. I'll come to the innovation part a little later. So I'm more worried in terms of why are we preparing people for employability? On the contrary, we should be enabling our learning process and mechanism to make them more entrepreneur. Because even if you look at how many people are coming to the higher education, the percentage is very, very less. And the people who are dropouts of the graduation and again high school level or many other levels of their graduate education, they are expecting that the people who are capable of, those who have gone up in the ladder, they will provide some livelihood for us. They will provide some factory. They will provide some employment. They will provide some sort of an alternative. That expectation at a different level is not being fulfilled by the modern curricular system in our syllabus and curriculum. That is one of the arguments that I'm trying to bring in here. Not to be dependent on some people who can go to IITs and IIMs, only they should do startups. Startup can happen at every level and every education and every sphere and every profession and every occupation. That's what I'm trying to look at it. So this has not enabled us to become more creative, entrepreneuring, dashing. So that character is somehow this education system does not provide, or probably our curriculum does not provide. It does not experiment with these kind of things, which have flourished and probably provided livelihood for many people. We don't know, much of the evidences are not there to prove or disprove any of these kind of arguments. It is wrong to believe that everything was bad, everything was also rosy. I wouldn't say that. In the future ahead, what we can do is now to bring in some sort of more entrepreneurial training program, the higher education people who can do some startups rather than getting employed. And I think we should stop looking for employability for the people of higher education. They should be trained more for employer, the ability to start up something new and also provide something new kind of a thing. So in this process, I take another dimension, why and how the innovations are not addressed in the modern education system. In Hindi belt, there is a term called as jugaad. What is a jugaad? Kaise bhi kuch to kar liya and then again ban gaya. Scientific invention only says that you have to make it work. Whether it makes it in this direction or goes in that direction, but ultimately it has to make work. You can polish it, you can reshape it, you can test it and verify it in different way. But there are lots of innovations at various levels, from rural to downtrodden or maybe marginalized too. These experiments are done by the people who want that to be done. Everyday challenges makes them to be innovative, and that innovation is not documented, it's not patented, it's not commercialized. We have brought in such a system that people get afraid of patenting and incorporating kind of a thing, and again they run away from the system. But still innovations are happening. Not to the scale in which we are being given to understand that the maximum innovations are happening in the West, especially Europe or America kind of a thing, but innovations still are happening at a very small level without having given any support system of providing or making any innovation. Now, the rural folk and again system is not equipped to provide or probably make any innovations. We don't give any lathe system, we don't provide them any support system, we don't give them any electricity, we don't provide them any consumables to any of these kind of experiments. The experiments are done at various other levels from the resources that they are left with them or surrounding with them. So this is a major challenge to any of these people. But if only people requirement is taken, collected, and if only it is transformed to some sort of institution, these kind of requirements are there. And that kind of requirement, if we cater, I think we can be the leaders of innovation in the whole world. Because society is huge, population is huge, diversity is huge, requirements are huge. There is a plethora of opportunity and people have survived and innovated and kaise to bhi jugaad karke to kuch chalaya hai. And that needs to be brought into the perspective or purview of innovation kind of a thing. And that innovation can probably, many innovations are happening and it dies at many places because of lack of support. It dies because of lack of goodwill, or probably dies because of lack of his good team, or it dies because of lack of economic. Various other system is required to make it happen to a commercial level or even to a successful innovations. Many inventions die even before that they are born. But the idea is not documented, experiments are not documented, attempts are not documented, and the success stories are also not documented. If only we try to do all these things, I think with this education can be defeated and innovation at various levels can be made a big, huge business altogether. So I'm not saying that education should be sidelined or anything like that. It has provided an awareness, some sort of a backbone for many people. It also provided various other opportunities for them to withstand, question, challenge many of their social realities. With this backdrop, I definitely see that there are lots of institutional support, various other things coming in. But the major challenge that we are now looking in terms of this artificial intelligence, which has posed a greater challenge, including teachers like us, researchers like us, and it has posed a very distinctively challenged dimension where every ordinary activity is being done by the computer with the help of artificial technology, artificial intelligence, and then that uproots many of these activities. Now, my point was my earlier argument that the huge population which has experimented all these things can definitely provide a better opportunity to unearth all these things and also defeat artificial intelligence domination. That domination needs to be only defeated with this vast experiential and again expertise. If we try to understand the argument of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, that is past, present, and future, the civilization need not have to go in the same linear manner as the way West has tried to explain the evolutionary perspectives. West has always, again, some of the critical explanations and arguments have already been that there has never been evolution in a linear manner. It could be multilinear, curvilinear, and again, various other linear formats. But we have been given to understand that things go in one particular direction, but the direction needs to be changed to bring in lots of changes in various other formatives. Digital divide and all these kind of things are some of the answers for the various challenges, and it has provided various other forms, and it has given opportunity for many people. But my point is basically, can we bring in the argument saying that the balancing of tradition and technology, not to brush aside everything in the name of tradition as bad, or it was not useful, it was not evidence-based, or it did not have any support to bring in that kind of argument. But the very fact that the knowledges that were there in traditional form, whatever may be the form, it could be oral or written or practice-based kind of a thing, whatever it might be, if it can be tested now, verified now, that can bring in some sort of a larger argument to sustain it, to bring in some sort of a gap that can sustain, which has not been experienced by the rest of the world. I recollect somebody making this particular argument in one of the groups that we were there. Whatever today's invention are called as science, and the answers that comes from the science is science, and whatever that was there in the earlier knowledge system in various other forms, whatever it may be, not just confining only to Sanskrit or Ramayana, Mahabharata, but they are called as mythology. I remember this particular notion where somebody were to say that when Ramayana, Mahabharata was shown in TV, that a single person can, with the help of bow, he can shoot n number of arrows. That was seen some sort of a mythological, it could not have been a reality. Now we can see that several reels in various other platforms, social media platforms, that people in some other country is experimenting that the arrow not goes in single direction, but goes in multiple direction in wavering ways, and again hits the target. And it crosses, just like the football at the penalty goal is given, the penalty person kicks the ball and goes in different direction, and it makes a complete curve. So this technology existed in the earlier days, we could not deny it. And everything that today is only answer should not be done. It's not denied that the knowledge existed earlier also, the knowledge exists today also. But what was knowledge available, what was not made available, what is unearthed, it has not come to the surface, where it is hidden, all those things needs to be checked out. So I'm only trying to say in terms of the future that the knowledge should be brought in the perspective of keeping the past, present, and future dimension. I'm only trying to bring in those kind of things. Criticality is one of the ways, but that's not the only way. But alternatives are the better ways of looking at things. The future challenges are many things which wrongly we have been told. That's where the deschooling, unlearning concepts have already been brought out by Ivan Illich and various other people. So I'll not get into those things. But many times we need to unlearn many things, and that has to come in the form of our pedagogy. Not everything can be brought in only one way of understanding things. The most important thing is not just thinking critically, but also interdisciplinarity and adaptability. But we have only confined only in this level of sociological understanding. The criticality and critical thinking is the only stage, nothing more or beyond that. That needs to be questioned, that needs to be addressed. That's what my whole argument is altogether. So this already said that relearning, deschooling, and again new paradigms have already been brought in. It's not new that I'm bringing in. I'm only brought those narratives here. Okay, now my argument is, let's start rethinking the blame game and again the narratives, either good or bad or right or false. So those fallacies and again narratives needs to be questioned, not to only to argue and again take positions, but to improve. Whatever the kind of arguments and discourses that are coming in, if it can provide an answer to the challenges that we are facing, that's well and good. But for the sake of criticism, only go on criticizing, nobody will take, and that's how we will probably may not find a place in the planning commission or decision-making processes. To make that particular possible, we need to come out with some sort of alternatives, answers, and mechanisms which can be answers for the people who make decisions and take stands in this direction. So several areas and several components can be brought in to bring in arguments and also different kinds of alternative narratives to explain the positive side of the education that has brought in a tremendous change in the last 70, 75 years after independence. The people are not the same, opportunities are not the same, challenges definitely are not the same. Which were yesterday has definitely changed things. We are all the beneficiaries of this first generation or education system, formal system, whatever it might be. So we need to provide some sort of an alternative by giving some sort of recognized progress, nurture some sort of hope, imaginative alternatives. My argument of this particular statement is coming in basically because if we build the kind of narratives and the documents, the next generation which reads only tries to see that there are lots of negative descriptions of the society. They will stop dreaming. Let us give some hope. And the progression has to be there that you can still survive. You can still thrive. You can still go up in the ladder and again achieve everything. And this is not the only way. There are other ways. If only we can create the other ways and other paths, that could be the ultimate form of understanding things. These are all some of the broader things that I wanted to share with you all. I'll stop here. And again, I now invite questions and probably take the questions now. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir, for your elaborated talk on transformation of education. So now the forum is open for the discussion.
There were some people in the chat, they were asking questions.
Yeah.
Ask now. Now it's open for discussion. I would expect people to.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Myself is Sri Ramulu from Benares Hindu University.
Okay.
First of all, I congratulate all of you, including you, because you have covered so many dimensions which are not generally taken care by social of education course. You have covered, I think, some important topics from education perspective also. So what my thing is, why a simple question is, nowadays, why the education is not inculcating like some kind of the moral values or social dimension is missing nowadays. So for example, if you see the literacy is increasing, all the third world countries are including all the countries. But why the some of the problems like corruption or maybe domination or maybe what we are observing nowadays, the wars between the countries, why these are happening? Because of not understanding in a proper manner, or because of lack of understanding internationalism, or I can say international brotherhood, as mentioned by Rabindranath Tagore long back, 100 years ago. But why, for example, if you see the education system in Japan, they have 100% successfully, I think, as per the curriculum point of view. But in other countries, it is not happening. So what is missing in our country, from though we have a great freedom fighters like Mahatma Gandhi's ideology, maybe in terms of business, maybe in terms of sustainable development, maybe in terms of rural development, or maybe in terms of non-violence, everything is still today it is also relevant. Even if you take Buddhist philosophy, that is also relevant. To take any religion that are born and brought up in India is relevant to our relevant nowadays for solving the global problems. So where we are failing, just try to give your input, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Sriramlu, I think we are not living in a homogeneous world. We are living in a heterogeneous world. Education that we are giving and education that people are getting in different societies are different. Need is there. Every society wants to survive and want to be in the limelight. Why is the war taking place? Wars are happening basically, one is because of ego, second is because of the interest of that particular resource in a particular country, and either it is because of your interest or somebody's interest, they are making you to perform. Like America has
Yes.
been playing a very significant role in terms of Russia and again Ukraine. And Ukraine, knowingly or unknowingly, has been a scapegoat in that direction. So their understanding has been totally different. That's how Japan wanted to keep itself away, having tasted the wrath of this war, the Second World War, and again the nuclear bombs that were exploded in 2 cities. And they said that let's keep ourselves away from this kind of a race and let's try to build economies in different direction. But they are also not away from this particular gamut of war games. It's basically mind is corrupted, communities are corrupted, nations are corrupted. Why is it so?
Yes.
It is basically because in the family, the father is expected to feed the family. In the institutional head is supposed to feed the institution. In a country, the leader has to feed the nation.
Yes.
How you feed is not the question people ask. I want the feed to be given to me. So
Yes.
people have different strategies, rightly or wrongly. This is how the answers come from family level to institution level to national level. They want to give the best to their children, to give their best to their citizens, best to their people. In this process, the giving the best to their children comes in the primordial, and again destruction of the others has become a different thing. So human perspective that everybody should live within your own purview has been the agenda of many other philosophers from India. Buddha has already said that the greed is the basic sin. The moment you greed all the things, so all these statements have already been dealt with. I'm not the new person or the person to come out with any new dimension, but this cannot be told to people. In that process, you need to build your defense system. Hence, the money which could have fed many people also goes to the pockets of the defense mechanisms. So, which also indirectly creates disparity. Not required, but it's a forced kind of thing. Now, how do we bridge all these things? How do we manage all these things is the question that every institution and every organization and every country has to manage. Have opportunities, just work towards it. I don't have an answer, but these are all my basic understandings. Probably others can also throw light on this.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box. I will read it for you.
Okay.
Junaid Khan is asking that he is working with some Muslim backward class Muslim women education. So he's asking some suggestions for book or some articles. And another question he is asking, what is cascade effect? And as we as more Muslims in self-employment or informal employment, that's why they don't consider education so important. So what's your view or what's your opinion on this?
Okay, I'm reading the Junaid's question also. As I'm working on Muslim women's aspiration for social mobility through education, can you suggest me a book or article? There are plenty of books. I'll probably share it with you. Right now, I don't have in my memory right now. I'll also share it with Professor Mohammad, and also he'll probably put in, transfer that particular content to you. There are several aspirations and lots of mobilities have already come in. It's not just confined only to Muslim women, but it could be women across religions, across communities in various other places. It need not be confined only to any particular. Cascading effect is basically, it has a multiple effect, like the snowball effect kind of a thing. It has, if it destroys one particular, like in a basket of fruits, if one particular thing get destroyed and then it starts destroying everything in a step way. But the cascading effect is much more multiplicative, and again is huge, and also it is it grows not in algebraic sense, but it goes in geometrical sense. The effect is multiple kind of thing. That's what this cascading effect is all about. But the self-employment or informal employment, whichever community, whether it is Muslim or Hindu or Christian, does not matter. Everybody wants to do some sort of livelihood. If we try to see in terms of, I have seen any of my friends who are also Muslims, who are also sitting beside me. They were so innovative, and again, all those kind of thing, very limited information I had, that they were working in different professions and very sensitive and also dangerous. And that daringness is not present in other communities, which is more present in Muslim. But when I started looking in terms of why is it Muslims are daring enough to do these kind of dangerous jobs, which could be hazardous to their life and various other things, it is the economic need makes them to become more. So this has not confined only to any particular one community, but the economic need, the direness, and again inevitability makes them to take those kind of things. But if you're looking in terms of self-employment and informal employment, I would rather put in the kind of skill set that every group has in your own vicinity, take it as an advantage and build that particular small talent into a livelihood. And it can be done by anybody. We don't teach them in the curriculum, but only there are some experiments being done by some people. A group of people who are good in some talents, and that talent can be transformed into institutional form by giving them some sort of a support system. Now, various government schemes are there to provide them various other support systems by taking loan, or maybe giving them shelter, or maybe some sort of economic support. Small step by step, this can be done by making the small group self-employable and also create an institutional support to them. But this education, people are going away for some reason. It has not answered many of their problems. So that needs to be questioned, I would rather put it. Dr. Manjula has,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Manjula V has asked some questions.
in your discussion, the shift from caste-based hereditary knowledge systems to professionalized standardized education, how do you think a traditional knowledge can be still be preserved and valued within formal educational structures? Rightly or wrongly, the system has come out in such a way that the moment you want to bring in a new syllabus or structure, we look at our immediate better institution. Like our institutions start looking into central universities start looking into European universities, and European universities have become some sort of the generators of knowledge and syllabus. The knowledge and the requirement is there in your own surroundings. That's what people need. I'll just sarcastically ask the question, what has Bourdieu to do with our learning and again providing employment to our children? Or any of this Frankfurt School people, rightly or wrongly, most of the sociological understanding in the present scenario has been the Frankfurt School originated. Marx at least had an answer to the destitutes, that you organize, create a revolution, and your life will be better. He had given a hope and dream that there will be a classless society. But look at the neo-Marxists, the whole Frankfurt School. 99% of the writings is the description of how the bourgeois try to sustain their position, retain their position, and they don't give anybody will not give you any answer in terms of how the proletariats have to do the next thing. They only narrated how the people sustain their position. I'm teaching this paper, and it becomes very, very heartening to tell that students that there is no answer these people are providing, but we are using that syllabus and we are teaching them. At least at the Karl Marx teaching, I was giving a narrative that how situations were very bad, and they feel very sad when the narrations were going on. When the revolution took place, when I was teaching the revolution, and there was some sort of hope, and again there was some sort of smile in their face. But the same set of students in the fourth semester, I don't see any type of spark, even in my teaching also, because the contents are so much that it only glorifies bourgeois, even criticizing also, but not provides alternative. So my point is, traditional knowledges can definitely be brought into educational structures, not by outsiders, but by making experiments. Traditional knowledge, it could be any profession. It could be Lohar. Lohar, how did they do, or Chamar, how did they do, is not documented in any of the Sanskrit texts. Am I right or wrong, Professor Mohammad, or any other people who are sitting here? Many professions are
Yes,
not even
sir.
documented in any of the texts. So that means 90%, I may be exaggerating or maybe out of realistic things, most of the occupational practices and knowledges have not been documented at all. If it is documented, it will be there in their own communities. And that's how the communities did not reveal their knowledge system to other communities. It's not that one community did not allow. Every community, none of the communities allowed their knowledge to be transferred to other communities. This was a secretive mechanism that was happening. And this was a trade secret. We have to unearth all those things. I'm not saying that everything is hereditary and everything is traditional is good, but there could be answers. I may be right or I may be wrong also, but let's see how it works. Hazardous such as Bengal industry, yes, definitely.
There is another question, sir. Miss Anjali Joseph has asked one question.
Wasn't the earlier livelihood?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes.
Linked to caste-based occupation, and isn't that one of the reasons why the system shifted towards the more general literacy to this education to break that connection between caste and livelihood? Interesting. Who told that people have moved from that particular caste-based occupation to this generally literacy-based occupation? Was it a colonial construction that the Britishers wanted their education to be imparted, not your local education to be continued? अपनी दुकान चलाने के लिए दूसरों का दुकान उजाड़ते हैं. And that's what they have done. This is what the economics has been doing. This is what the managements have been doing. And this is how the systems have done it. And why do you think the non-confidence motion and Swaraj kind of movements had to come in? Because they destroyed our local whole industry. They destroyed our whole network. They destroyed the whole structure. In every profession, it's not only cloth industry. The products that we were producing, agriculture that we were doing, everything was destroyed. And an alternative was provided in the name that this education will provide you livelihood. This education will give you some sort of emancipation. This education will provide you some sort of equality. Did it provide? This English education or the language that we are speaking only enabled some of us to get into the line of these European-based occupational structure-based occupations or professions, but nothing enhanced our livelihood. Some of the people who had cultural capital have benefited out of it, but it did not engage the whole mass in the hierarchy. I wanted the whole mass at the bottom to be engaged. That did not happen. These are all some of my views. I may be wrong also, but again, this could be very challenging, but this needs to be understood from that angle. Hen Gayatri, Dr. Hen Gayatri, it was a great intellectual and informative session.
There is a question Ms. Kalavati P has asked, sir, in the last chat. What kind of value addition recognition will be there for people who work in the informal innovative sector in our society?
Value addition recognition will be there for people who work in the informal or innovative sector in our society. There are now mechanisms and societies which are working in this direction. Every community has started praising their own people who have done some sort of achievement, have made some sort of breakthrough. And by small recognition, these attempts have already started. And it happens with some certain selected communities, but it should be happening at all community level. I have seen some of the communities doing it, that they praise their own people, where whether it is small or big, their achievements are celebrated. They are praised, and again, they are given more importance, and again, they validate all those things. So my point is, the informal or formal, whatever it might be, innovation needs to be seen not by an established agency like NASA or DRDO or big organizations like that. Whichever college you are teaching in, whichever the university you are teaching in, and you become an institution which can recognize that innovation. Own that ownership of recognizing those kind of innovations. The people who are doing informal innovations in their own region, they do not know how to make it public. At least you have that information. At least you have the mechanism. At least you know the path how to make it formal. You take that role of making it happen. We should not confine ourselves to the four walls or the classrooms kind of thing. We need to go outside the classroom, outside the boundaries of the universities and colleges, go to the field. We can do wonders, document it, take share in that, does not matter. Align names with them, does not matter, but give them the path that is required. And that's what I would require you, everybody to do that.
Do we have any other questions, dear audience?
I think we are running out of time.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So today's session was like thought-provoking, enlightening one. So the main arguments which sir has incited here was like revisiting the Gurukula system, community-based knowledge and occupation, critical reflection on modern education, linguistic and cultural exclusion, critique of caste-only discourse, while caste-based exclusion is a reality. Social, political, economic, and gender exclusions also need to have equal focus. Dalits and Adivasi communities have their own pedagogies and knowledge system rooted in livelihood. The role of women and gender knowledge, because innovation has largely been designed from male perspectives. These were the arguments which Professor has raised today. And decentralizing and diversifying education, which would mean recognizing varied forms of learning and regional diversity and practice-based expertise. Integrating social sciences and technologies, sir has beautifully discussed how social science in IITs and other institutions have failed to shape technological innovations from a human-centric perspective. There is a need for interdisciplinary collaboration and need-based research agendas, and there is a call for transformative educational models, which sir has briefly elaborated in his session. And let me come to the vote of thanks. Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to reflect on Professor
Sure,
Rajesh
sir.
views. In fact, I'm sorry I'm entering into the debate very late. First of all, of course, you will be thanking him in your formal vote of thanks. But let me also, as the convener and on behalf of the RC and also on behalf of the Indian Sociological Society,
Sure, sir.
and from very deep of my depth of my heart, let me thank him and also the audience. But before that, before the formal vote of thanks are initiated, I would like to just throw light on few aspects of what Professor Rajesh has touched upon. It's really a very interesting, kind of roping into the discussion, the kind of, Gurukula education model and all. I definitely acknowledge that the Gurukula education has, initiated the formal education system in the country, what we can say. Because until then, it was only a formal kind of socialization kind of education by observation or kind of thing. But in a formal way, in the formal setting, the education took place after Gurukula model has been introduced. So, but what I am afraid is that the Gurukula system has had failed to integrate the uh, opportunities or the wishes of the people. It was confined mostly to the ritualistic kind of aspects of education. Then giving education a value or a livelihood kind of thing. Thus, uh, it is not that, having said that, you may ask that how come these traditional occupations are could be seen. Yes, traditional occupations could be seen as assigned with educational value, but the traditional occupation, kind of hereditary specialization of occupations took place at the family level, not the formal education settings. I may be wrong also. So this is one aspect that I would like to inform. Given the homo hierarchical system that existed in the country, and the society had been divided into different kind of strata, and that strata is given with certain assigned with certain occupation to certain community. Then there was a kind of education aligned with the occupation, but unfortunately the occupations could not continue further or longer, what we can say. And the aspect we have to see here, as Professor Rajesh said, is the English education. But can we really villainize the English education? Because English education has brought some opportunities to certain communities which were not participated in development, which were not participated in education before. So what I want to highlight here is that English education has added some significance in the system. It has brought the medicine kind of occupation, engineering kind of occupations, and also not only English education, some other education systems like even Islamic education and kind of other education systems also brought in some value to the education. But only thing is that there was a clash, dichotomy existed between the traditional education systems and English education system. But that can we say that the dichotomy offered advantage to English education, and it was very kind of uh, strategy that it destroyed the traditional occupation system vis-a-vis the education system, or can we see it in the way that the societies were changing, modernizing? Modernizing is something which cannot be stopped, or change cannot be stopped. So, uh, with these few things, I think, if the time permits, I may request Professor Rajesh to flash an outlook into these aspects. If not, this remains my, reflections on the lecture.
Sure. And in a nutshell, I will definitely put in. My argument was not to justify Gurukula system. My narrative was to say that is it possible for such a large society with a diversified, stratified, hierarchized society to have only one form of education system? My point is there could have been multiple forms of education system is not documented at all. Gurukula is only told to us there are other forms of systems of education which has not been told to us. That was my point. Whether it is good or bad, whether it did bring any change or not, whether it was catering to everybody or not, is the second point for me. My point was with either we are glorifying Gurukula system or victimizing Gurukula system. I am saying that there are other alternative systems which were prevailing, which is not even documented, known to us, and again, it's not being explored. explore that, probably that can explain many, many things. Whether it was done deliberately by the patronized political system, or it was to patronize a particular community, or it was a strategy of some community to self-guard and safeguard their own system and again denigrate other systems. My point was that. I'm only trying to say that there could have been better alternatives also. I may be wrong also. This is just some sort of a theoretical proposition I'm trying to make. It cannot have a system, a whole nation cannot have only one system for the whole pan-India process. In that process, if it has provided or not provided is a structural deficiency that needs to be questioned. If that deficiency has been there, it could not have probably catered to everybody. So the structural explanation of the Gurukula system is self-defeating in one direction, I'm trying to say. Regarding English education system, it is given to us to understand that it created a level playing platform. But we don't have the information prior to 18th century, how many schools were there, how many people and occupationist-based kind of learning centers were there. Just to remind, or probably to recollect, when I was a Vice Chancellor officiating and also Register Revelation at Music and Performing Arts University, there are even now gharanas of musical trainings, tablas, vadyas, and various other, there are gharanas. And you have to go there and again learn there and again come out. It's not only, it does not come from the perspective of Gurukula system. It is a different system altogether. You can come and go, you can stay there, you can go there, you can go out of that, whatever may be the system. But all these kind of systems were not a part of good education. They were a part of not so good education, because dancing and music were not good education, their constructions. They were having a different names altogether. So like that, if you are performing a particular occupation, it was not given a good name. So there were alternative systems. There were mechanisms which provided scope for people to understand, live with their dreams. I'm only trying to say that kind of a thing. But whether English education provided equal playing platform to everybody, okay, to some extent, literacy was not provided, literacy has provided, but has that literacy and education provided employment opportunity and livelihood opportunity for the scale that we are implementing? I'm linking not literacy to just getting education degree. My education is connected to the livelihood. My argument of that is not for certificate, but for livelihood. Has that translated into livelihood? If that has not, and even the English education system is not fulfilled. Yes, English education definitely has made aware of people of their rights, duties, and also various other constitutional provisions. It has made them confident, but that could have been done also by the regional languages. Why only English? And the denied language, that is why only Sanskrit. People have lived without Sanskrit, and people have lived since ages without English also. We don't have right now data to prove or disprove that people are happy or unhappy then, but it's only the narratives which are patronized documents in the name of history that we have. That I question the patronized documented history also. Anyway, we'll get into these debates. Interesting, Professor Mohammad.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, Yasser, you can
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
proceed.
Yes. Yes. So, respected speaker, esteemed conveners, scholars and participants, it's a privilege to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of RC5, Indian Sociological Society, at the conclusion of today's wonderful special lecture by Professor Rajashekar sir, at a time when education is being questioned not just for its access but for its meaning. Professor Rajashekar has offered a deeply analytical, historically grounded, and forward-looking vision of education as empowerment and transformation. He has urged us to revisit and rethink the limitations of Gurukula and how many vital professions and practices existed outside its structure. The erosion of traditional livelihoods due to industrial and curriculum-centric education systems. There is an urgent need to revive community knowledge in crafts, trades, and arts that have sustained people for generations. We were reminded that literacy is not the same as education, and education that doesn't provide livelihood only widens inequality. linguistic and cultural exclusions have suppressed many vibrant regional knowledge systems. Gender sensitive innovations and social science must align with technological development to ensure that progress is equitable and rooted in human needs. So, as a coordinator of this session, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Rajashekar sir for this compelling and courageous discourse. My thanks to Professor Mohammad sir, convener of RC5 ISS, for his leadership and intellectual guidance. Appreciation to ISS for providing the platform to explore such transformative themes. And my sincere thanks to all the scholars, researchers, students, and participants who engaged with us today. And finally, to the technical team and volunteers for this seamless coordination and support behind the scenes. Let us leave this session inspired to reclaim lost knowledge, redesign our pedagogies, and reimagine education not as a privilege for a few, but as a tool for empowerment for all. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Professor Rajesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
Mohammad.
Friends, thank you for your participation. I think you can leave the meeting now.